Hello, and welcome along to today's lunchtime stream. On today's stream, I've got even less time than I normally do because I need to rush to get to an appointment after this. So I'm just going to jump straight in. Today's stream is... Let me just put that on. Today's stream is a continuation of the work that we were doing on Monday night stream. So on Monday night stream, we started looking at this project that I work on called GitReleaseManager. GitReleaseManager had a couple of pull requests sent in to it from a couple of community contributors. One is Arthur, and the other one is Geert. Two of those, so basically they were adding new features. Hello, Kim, in the chat room there. Effectively, they were adding two new features into GitReleaseManager. One was to include SHA information on any assets that are added to the release, which was a great feature that got added in. The other one was to control the tag name and also the title. So that was what you can do now is you can pass in both a milestone and a name, and it will control create those both. So to see those in action, and just to see where we got to, if I go to the releases here, and I go back to my command window where I've just run this, but effectively what we're saying here is, I'm going to put name in here, and I'm going to say this is a test. And if I run this, what should happen is it will create a release. It will add the temp.test.text into the release, and it should create a new release. So if we go up here and have a look at this, then what we've got is, so where before any release would have just had the milestone associated with it, now we've got the ability to put any kind of arbitrary text that we want into the name, but the milestone that it was generated against, or the tag that will be created, is still the name that you put into there. And also the other part of this is that it's now included the SHA, which is the SHA of the asset that we added into the release, which is this one here. So all of this together looks pretty good to me. So the first thing that we're going to look at today is Kim's PR. So Kim is in the chat room, so that's good. So I'll be able to ask him any questions about the PR that he has created. So what Kim has added in here is essentially making GitReleaseManager use itself, the latest build, when it comes to creating the release notes and releasing itself. So, i.e., it's essentially a stopgap to say that if GitReleaseManager isn't able to create the release by itself, using itself, then something is broken with that GitReleaseManager. So it's a bit of a safety net. So we quickly discussed this on Monday night stream, and I had a very brief look at it on Monday, and I suggested that there was a couple of things that we might want to look at differently. And in between Monday and now, Kim has completely overhauled it. So before, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, what was happening was you were overriding each of the individual tasks that were where GitReleaseManager was being used, and essentially telling it to use the latest build of GitReleaseManager. So there's a lot of work in there, but you've refactored that. You've refactored it to make it. It's really quite clever. So I want to talk about a couple of things in here. So I'm going to bring this up in the code so that we can see it, because there's a couple of things that are quite clever in what Kim's doing here. So I'm in the wrong folder. So if I cd up out of this, we'll come here. I saw that as well. I saw that you had added a link there, Kim. So I did see that. So what we want to talk about is it boils down to like a few lines, but those few lines are quite important. So let's kind of walk through what's happening here. So this section here, at first glance, you might think that this is overriding the .NET Core build task. And the first question you might have is, well, why are you overriding the .NET Core build task, but then not actually doing a build? Because we still want to build GitReleaseManager, because otherwise we will have nothing, we won't have the new version of the executable. But the way that Cake's actually working here is that this .does, you can have multiple of those on a task. So what Kim's essentially doing here is we've already defined what the .NET Core build task is doing within cake.recipe. That's the part that's calling into the .NET Core CLI. It's the thing that's passing in the solution argument, configuration, parameter, all that sort of stuff that we want the build to have. But what Kim is then doing is then he's adding on this additional does method for doing some supplemental work. And that supplemental work here is to grab the exe that was generated and placed into the build folder and then re-register that within the Cake engine. So effectively what that's saying is, rather than use the Git release manager that comes from the resolved tools folder, he's saying use the generated exe whenever you're then calling to run Git release manager. So this first kind of 8 lines, it's genius, right? Like I say, this is a lesser known feature of Cake, I think. I've not seen a lot of people doing this in the wild, so this is a great usage of it, in my opinion, right? And then the other part here is this is essentially saying, make sure that you've done this part before you call create release notes. So effectively what that's saying is, before you call create release notes, make sure that you do the build so that it re-registers the exe in the tool registration. Is that Cake would still download. And I think that's okay. So Kim's saying in the chat room there that the only drawback to this approach is it's still resolving the Git release manager and placing it into the tools folder. I think that's okay. I mean, it's I don't see an issue with that necessarily. I mean, we could. Oh, no, we couldn't do that. I was going to say that in the new version of cake.recipe, where we have more control over the tool resolution, we could be able to do something there, but I'm not sure if we could. So your point's taken, and I'm okay with that. I don't really have a big issue. So the other part that I mentioned on Monday night's stream is that if we're in the situation where we are creating a release of Git Release Manager and Git Release Manager publishing process fails, then the way that cake.recipe works is it will continue with the other publishing tasks. So Kim's gotten around that by essentially setting the error handler here to be null. So in this scenario, it will not do that republishing work because the error handler is not in play anymore. He's taken that out. And the other part here is... why is he doing this last part? Cake, publish, chocolatey task is dependent on... You're just changing the dependency graph here, but I'm not clear on why. Oh, I see. Okay. That I get that. Okay, no, I'm okay with that. So this is genius, I think. So the only other thing that I think we can do, so this I think resolves the issue that Kim raised this PR for, which was for Git Release Manager to dog food itself. Beautiful, that makes sense. To make sure that GitHub publish task is run first, so if it fails, it then aborts all the other publish tasks. Yes, exactly. Very concisely put. The only other thing that I think that we could do in addition to this, Kim, is cake.recipe has the concept of running integration tests. I wonder if what we need to do is we need to have integration tests run against this fake repository, and essentially doing what I'm doing. Actually create a draft release on this repository as part of an integration test that would be run from cake.recipe. Now, the only thing that we would need to do in addition is we would need to do the final thing that I normally do, which is to discard it. And I don't think, if I recall correctly, I don't think we have a method in here to actually cd into build artifacts. Why are you not? Oh, CD into GitReleaseManager, sorry. I went up too far. So CD into build artifacts, temp, publish artifacts, publish applications, GitReleaseManager, net45, and then GitReleaseManager.exe. Debug first. Oh, I'm not CDing anymore. So I'm not ignoring you, Kim. I'm just literally trying to, in my own head, GitReleaseManager.exe, do that. We've got create, add asset, close, publish, export, show config. So we don't have a method on GitReleaseManager to discard a draft that was created. So I think what we need to do is we need to add a new feature request, which is what you're saying there, which is to add a new method, which is to discard the draft. Then we could have an integration, a naive integration test, but the integration test would effectively try and create the 012 release notes. We could then export those release notes and compare it against what we think it should be, because that's a known quantity. Then we could discard the draft, ready for the integration tests to be ran the next time. And if those integration tests fail, we know that we'll just have a manual task to go back and reset the release back to where it needs to be. So that's not ideal, but I sort of like the idea. You kind of prompted in my head that with GitReleaseManager dogfooding itself, I think we can add some integration tests as well to catch any issues before we actually attempt to do the initial GitReleaseManager release that would then tell us that something's broken. If we have those integration tests in play, then we can play with that. So that's just an idea that was surfacing. I'll write up an issue for that, I think. But for this one, I'm going to say that this looks good because I built it locally and it all seems to work to me. So I'm going to do this. And then what I want to talk about is the follow-on issue that we created as a result of Arthur's PR. So let's have a little look here. I'm just going to put this in here, even though thank you for your contribution, Kim. I'll say it to you, but I'll also put it in words here. But in that case, every command would need to be tested. So I don't know if that's true. It would be nice, yes, it would be nice that every command was tested. But there are some that we couldn't, because if we were to create a draft release, so let's do this. If we go back up here, I'm now in the wrong place, so that won't work. Let's back to the start here and do build artifacts, temp, publish applications. Where do we go next? Applications, GitReleaseManager, net45. If we run that to generate this one again, so if we come back here, and this is why I was thinking this. If we are, so we that would be the first integration test, right? The follow-on integration test could be, for instance, to close the milestone and to publish the release. The problem with that, if we publish this, then it creates a tag. And then to tidy everything up, we need to delete a tag. And, you know what I mean? It just becomes harder to reset everything. So of the commands that we have here, I think it would be, we could do a create, we could do the add asset, we wouldn't necessarily do the close and the publish, but we would do the export, and at that point we would stop. Hello Maurice, welcome to the stream, and thank you for the subscription. You've been subscribed for 6 months. Thank you very much. So we wouldn't be testing the other two, the open, the close, and the publish. But arguably, see, I don't know. I think as a first pass, we could do the integration tests that are just creating the draft, adding an asset, and then discarding it. If we get to that point, we've done a fair chunk of it. And then if we want to go the next step, we could then look to using something like the kick.git plugin to see if we can revert the tag that was added on the upstreams, things like that. But the initial kind of, if those kind of 3 or 4 commands are working, then there's a strong chance the rest of it is working. There's also a chance that it's broken, but it's maybe. You know what I mean? Do you hand out 6-month stickers? No, I don't. Did I show you? Oh, you might not have seen. You weren't on the stream on Monday, were you, Maurice? You missed the. I got these new stickers. I'll show you these ones. ImageBot. We had the creator of ImageBot on the stream, and we were. I was kind of starstruck a little bit. I'll be honest. It was great to have him on the stream. He was interacting and helping out. But yeah, I use ImageBot all the time now, and I got some stickers through from him, so it was great. So I'm going to go ahead and do a git. I'm going to do a git switch. I'm almost there. I'm so close to remembering that one. So git switch develop, git fetch upstream, and we're going to do a git rebase upstream on the develop. Beautiful. And then we're going to do a git push audio. Right. So if we go back over here, that's closed. So the issue is been closed because Kim used that one. It's an improvement, and it's on the next milestone, which is this one. Beautiful. Okay. So the next issue that I wanted to think about was this one. So what we noted in here, see, you've stolen my thunder, Kim. I will be honest, and I say I hadn't read this, but I came to the same conclusion as what Kim has here, which is to allow. So initially, I had thought that when we added in the support for the additional SHA, we would need to provide some overloads on the command itself to say whether or not we would include the SHA or not. And I was like, well, that's problematic because that means extending the command line interface and all that sort of stuff. You did? I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it. Hand on heart, I hadn't seen it, and it does actually say 4 days ago. This came to me the other day that I just wanted to add additional configuration in the YAML file to allow control over that thing. So what we've got here is enable and disable SHA in the create, include SHA as true. Maybe the header of the SHA as well. Ooh, I like that. Oh, was it? Sorry, I must have missed that. Did I not have to? I wasn't running away, was I? Was I time restrained? I can't remember. So include SHA. So my thinking is that this is true by default. What are your thoughts on that? I think true by default makes sense. Default value for the SHA header. Yes, I like that. And then how to change it is the SHA line. I like it. Don't really know what the name should be. Last note, also in terms of how the SHAs are rendered, I would suggest that perhaps this. Actually, what I meant was test text blah. Single inline Oh, I see. Not 2 separate ones. Or even. Okay. So you would have the SHA first, then the file name. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. So this is what I'm going to start playing with. So this is issue 136. So if we do git checkout, no, git switch works there too, doesn't it? Git switch will work for here too. So we're going to say feature GH136 from the develop branch. Can the switch not be used to create the branch, or do I need a flag on it? Git switch. Oh, to create, look. So git switch -c. That one's not under my fingers. No. How do I tell it where to? Oh, I'm a little confused by this. Oh, well, hold on. I had a -h on the end. Try that again. Nope. What are we doing? What is happening here? There we go. I was just doing it wrong. I was holding it wrong. So now we've got a git switch -c feature develop. Okay, perfect. So we're here. Okay, so over on our, let's minimize some of these things a little bit. Then in the core, we have some configuration objects. One is the create configuration and one is the export configuration. So in terms of the SHA, we want it's on when we're doing the create. So we want to, let's maybe make this a little bit bigger. Let's do 150 so that everybody can see it. So in here we've got include footer, footer heading, footer content. So we'll maybe follow the same sort of thing that we've got in here. So what we're talking about is public bool include, I'm going to go with SHA footer. How does that sound to everyone? Because it's still a footer, but it's a specific one. So we've got include SHA footer and its YAML attribute. So it's going to be a YAML member and it's going to have an alias of include SHA section. Ooh, I like section. I like that. Let's go with that. Include SHA section. Like it. And then SHA section header, I think, to follow the same thing. So we've got public string SHA section heading, because that's going to be what we control. So we can default these values, and we will default them to what we want them to be, but all of them will be overrideable. And then this is going to have an alias, which is SHA section heading. And the final one was the content. So, and then the footer content. So then in here, we've got another public string SHA section content. And that will essentially be a regular expression that, not a regular expression, but a replaceable string that will include what information that we have. Hold on. Since you had to show off the image bot sticker, I guess I should also with the ones I added to my main. Oh, hold on. Let's have a wee copy at clipboard. I want to git and paste. What's all this? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, that's a little bit interesting. Copy, continue to stream. Ooh, look at this. So we've got, oh, there's the GitHub one, chocolatey one. Look at that. There we go. I approve. Because that was I think I got that samurai one as well, did I? Let me check. Yeah, I got that samurai one too. So many stickers. So many stickers. There we go. Alright. No cake sticker? Have you not got cake stickers? I should get you cake stickers if you haven't got cake stickers. And a cake contrib one too. Oh, hold on. Where's my pen? I'm gonna write that down because I've got t-shirts to send to Maurice, so I'm gonna add on send stickers to Kim. Send stickers to Kim. So when I go to the post office, I'll make sure I do that too, because we need to fix that. Just got that one here. Okay, so we were. I need a YAML member here. So YAML member is alias is going to be SHA section content. Okay, so effectively what we're doing here, so this class here represents the content of the YAML file that is read by GitReleaseManager to control how things are done, right? So in the issue that Kim created, what he's suggesting is that we have these 3 additional sections of the YAML file, and then allow people to overwrite it. So we will, in the absence of any of these, we will default to what Kim has here. So the format of the line. I'm sorry. What does that mean? So the format of the line, as in this here? Let's think of that one. I'll see what Kim's saying back there. So now what we want to do is we want to use these things. So where we use these things, so if we look at, for example, the footer content and see where that's used, find all references, we will see that the footer content is used in here. So what we're saying here is if we are in the add footer section, we can get access to the footer content via the configuration object. So configuration.create.footer content. When you said section content, is that to the side the format? Oh, I see what you're getting at. So it's maybe not content, is it? I see what you're getting at. Section content, is that to decide the format to use when creating each SHA file? Yes. So it's not really a content, is it? It's a line format as opposed to content, because the entire content will be made up of how many assets you have. I see where you're getting at. So SHA section line format, I think is what we want to call that. Line format. How does that sound? Yes? Is that better? And then we will use that format to commingle the file name and the SHA, right? So if we go back to where Arthur is on the chat. I'm hoping that he's okay with what we're doing here, because he's been a little bit quiet so far. But I'm hoping he's okay with what we're doing here, because all we're doing is slightly modifying his release notes a little bit, his PR a little bit. So if we go back to what was changed, it was all in the main program.cs. And Maurice only has one eye on us. So if we go back up to, actually, oh no, that's fine. So this is in the CLI program.cs. And no ears. Okay, so if we have a search in here for SHA, then we have the add asset SHA. So this is what we're talking about here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to check to see that we have access to this thing. So we might not have it here because it's, oh, that's a static though. So do we have access to the configuration at this point? Yeah, I came to that point. I checked it. I in my head, I was there. Let's see where we get access to it. Configurations. So we get it from there. We have it at this point. So great timing. So the question is, where are we using that configuration object? Are we passing that in? Are we? Oh, we are. So we're passing it into the create release from milestone. Perfect. So that's kind of where we need it. So let's follow that little train along. What we don't do is we don't pass it into the add assets. So we're going to want to put that in here. These are private methods, so we don't need to worry about breaking any external contract. So that's fine. And then what's the type? The type is config. We go to this guy and go across to here, and we say config configuration. We now, did I spell that right? No, I didn't. configuration. So then I think we want to pass this down a little bit. Close enough. Configuration. It's another word I can't type properly. So now if we follow this guy down. Why is there so many? Hold on. Hold on. Why is that coming back to itself? Oh, it's down here. That's fine. Config. Configuration. So now in here, where we ultimately want it, I maybe should have just made this a thing at the top. So now, if we get all the way down here, we've got a config object that we can use. So the question is, does that need to be refactored? But that's a question for a different day. This is all about functionality. So now in here, what we're saying, sorry. So we got cake, chocolate, and configuration. I don't know. I think it's just in general, I just can't type. The other one that I do all the time is when I'm typing the E and the H are always round the wrong way. And I've never, what I should do is set up an auto hotkey script that automatically changes TEH to THE, because I always get it wrong. So this should now have a create, and that will have a SHA section heading. So we'll put that in there. All right. And then it says, then we want this one here. So append format is going to be configuration dot create dot SHA section line format rather than that. And we're going to assume, so let's go back to Kim's issue, and let's say that and this will come through in the documentation that we're going to write at some point, we will make the file name the first part of the format and the SHA sum. Or how do we do named? I was just going to put a 0 and a 1 in this format string. Can we do named ones? Or is that only a C#, the newer C# thing? Or how do I name them when I pass them as parameters? You did it as a placeholder. Okay, fine. So the file name will be 0. And okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something, because that's something that would be useful. So then the SHA is going to be the second one. So let's put this as compute SHA on the asset, which is there. And then, if I missed there we go. So then we don't want that second one because it'll be handled. We need to do some, let's just put 0 and 1 at the minute. So we'll assume that that's got a 0 and 1 in it. And then the other one here is, we want an AND that says configuration.create include SHA section. So if there are any assets and we're including the section, then we come through here and we do stuff. So the other thing that we need to do is we need to look at where we are defaulting the configuration provider. So that's going to be, there's one there. Oh, and that's a linked file, that's why it's coming up twice. So this is where we have the opportunity to, don't you already do some special handling for the release notes content, like replacing the milestone? When we replace, I mean, we do some stuff. So if we go, no, let's just do it this way, github.com/, I mean, it's been a while since I've looked at this code base properly. So what we do is we allow for look at that. So where do we... Maybe I should look at what we're doing there. Footer content. What do we do? Oh, look at that. Footer.content, replace the milestone, replace text with the milestone title. How does that work? But is that just an example as well? I think that's just an example. Oh no, it's here, look. Oh, look. Oh, I see what I did. Do we need that here? That's kind of an extra layer. I don't think we need that. In this scenario, we'll just say that it's the file name and the asset, the file name and the SHA. I don't think we need that complexity. So let's just do what we were doing. But what we need to do is when we initially set up the config, we need to default the values. So what we want to do is up here in the create config, we're going to say include SHA section. I'm going to say that that's true by default, because mainly in this, when I'm looking at accepting or creating the default values, I kind of look at what I want. So there's less work for me if I don't have to do the YAML file. So I want the SHA to be included by default, because that means I don't have to create a YAML file and override it. So that's what I'm going to do there, right? So that's purely selfish, but I'm the maintainer. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So the heading is going to be equal to what the default was originally. So that was going to be this guy. If I grab that and put this over here, right? And then the final one is the SHA section line format. So this is, then we have to look at what I want the default to be here. So the default from Arthur was to have it as a nested. So did we create one, or did I delete it again? We deleted it. So let's look again at, where's that one? We'll create it one more time. So the default that Arthur created was to have text.text and then on a new line the SHA. Now, based on what Kim said, I'm not sure. That could get out of proportion. I think a single line, hold on, some consideration to take into account though for default to true. Say there are some users that do some manual parsing after creating the draft. Including SHA as a default could break. You see, that's a sensible suggestion. Hold on. Say there are some users that do manual parsing after creating the draft. Okay, how about this? Let's put this off again. Let's put this off. So it's not there by default. But after it's in, we will flip it so that people have an opportunity to use it and then change any processes that they have. But I take your point. There's also the one for exporting of the release notes. You may want to modify your removal regex to also include the removing of the SHA when you export the, because we'll have to do that on Chocolate GUI. So yeah, I think there's a good reason to not have it. So I've rethought that now. Okay, so the final one is the format. So this is what Arthur suggested, 2 lines. I actually think I prefer what Kim suggested, which is to have a single line And then the question is which one's first. I think I prefer the text first. So file name. So I'm going to grab this so that we have something, right? And then in here, we're going to format it a little bit, right? So that's going to be there. So I'm going to take off that part. I'm going to take off the new line. I'm going to leave the tab in play. Ooh, do I want a hyphen between it? Let's see what it looks like. So let's take that out. So we've got tab, and then we said that the file name was going to be the first one, so that's a 0, and then that is a 1. So SHA section line format is going to be that, right? It's because it will always be the same length, having the file name first. But you see, the tab might not always work. See when you bring your logic, Kim? I'll just and I'm going to take that out. So it's coding the whole thing. Okay. So if we go ahead and build this now, and then we'll try running it and we'll see what happens. So by default, it should be there. So let's go back to here and let's discard this draft. And we'll run the build, and then we will run it. Oh, that's probably because I've got a folder open. Delete and delete. And if this works, I then need to do a shoot because I've got an appointment I need to get to. But we're pretty close. I think we're pretty close to having this working. So, what's going on? Am I debugging or something? I wonder if it's Visual Studio. Let's just close all these things. And if this doesn't work, then I'm really confused. What? That's fair. Okay, so one of those applications was holding open. Whoa. Broke something. Maybe I should have built it in Visual Studio. It would have told me. What did I break? One of the overloads that I added the configuration to. Oh, it must be called from somewhere else. And I won't be passing it down through. I bet that's what it is. So let's do a build in here. Dun, dun, dun. Got like 12 minutes at a push. We can do this one. Come on, build. Build failed. No overload for add assets takes 5 arguments. Let me see, this becomes more problematic. Because that one doesn't have configuration, so we need to pass it in. This definitely needs to be refactored. Configuration. No, that's nowhere near it. Configuration. Copy. This is just a little train. I'm going to have to go backwards on config configuration. That will then cause its overload to not have it. You see, I didn't want to have to do it there. Yeah. Let's get it working and test it, and then we can refactor this out. Because it's getting a little bit messy. No, you see, I won't be able. I have to do this. Take this out here, and then we can have that, and then this one already has it because we were using it. So this was just configuration, and then I think we have them all. No, and then file system. Where do we get file system from? File system is passed in, so we can do that. Oh, because that's part of the. Oh, it's so this one we can do here, and then that one can be passed in from here. There's definitely stuff we need to. File system. See if that does it. Rename file. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now we build. Can we build this? I guess we could. There's nothing to stop us having a static configuration at the top here, because once we read it in, it doesn't change within that execution of GitReleaseManager anyway. So I think we could get away with that. So let's do the build again to get the asset generated, the assembly generated, and then we can test it out and see where we go. Now, is clean going to work this time with Visual Studio being open? It did. Strange. Build, build, build. And then if you look closely as this is going through, you'll see Kim's additional context.information being put out, which is that it's resetting, there we go, registering built GitReleaseManager executable. So that's the additional work that Kim did in his PR, which extends the default .NET build task. So, FRB, Juke Finder, really? There's a Juke Finder error that we'll have to fix, but that's for a different day. If I just run the artifact, which has been generated, it should create the release in the same way it did before, but this time around it won't have the SHA. It won't have the SHA included. Well, let's just test to see if that's working. So if we go over here and look at the generated release, then it has the asset, but it doesn't have the SHA, which is what we were expecting. Good. So if we discard this and we walk up to our build artifacts, temp, published applications, and in here, if we add a GitReleaseManager.yaml file, which I can't remember if we spell it with a Y, with an A or not. Where would I give that? Or I could look through the source code, but I've got an example of it somewhere. Get13 -OSS something. CI/CD assets. Where are you? You're here. So what we want is one of these guys. So we don't, some of these things we don't need, obviously, but it's the name that I was interested in, which is this. So if we walk over here and we create a new text file called that guy, right? Shouldn't it be in the current work directory, i.e. the location where the terminal is currently showing? No. Maybe. Let's try it. Let's try it. I think it's from where the AXE is actually executing, but we'll try it. Open with VS Code, and in here we're going to want let's go to the documentation, which is here. We want create, and then we're going to include. So this is overwriting default, so include SHA section. How do it detect the points in the root of the repository from GRM cake script? That's a very good question, but I think I might have an answer for that. Let me come to that. Right? I think it's going to work. Let's try it. Right? I maybe have an answer. So where's the releases? The releases here. We deleted that one. Right? So if it creates the release this time, then it should create it with the SHA associated with it. Let's have a look. I became unsure. I remember writing some code that walks, because GitReleaseManager comes from Git version. Git version needs to find the .git folder, and it will walk its way back up to the top of the repository to find the .config file, and then as a result, it will find the Git version file. So, I'll copy this guy and put this up here then, and see what that does. Let's run it again. Oh. Value cannot be null. What's that talking about? For the format. Eh? What are you talking about being null? What did that say? Value cannot be null on the provider format. What? I thought that the YAML file again, yeah. You shouldn't need to put every property in. Or should you? I forget how that I forget how that deserialization works. Shouldn't need to. That's a little bit confusing to me. But as a final sanity check, let's go and put the same file into, and then I do need to go GitReleaseManager CLI, bin, debug, net45. Let's also put it in there. And then I'm going to say, which one is it running by default? I'm going to say run this guy, set a startup project, and then in here, set breakpoint and run it. Oh, I need to pass all the arguments for it to. Right, fine. We can't debug that just now. Okay, so that's it for just now. I was hoping to get this to a point where we could send the PR up, but we're not quite there. So I think we'll continue this on Monday night stream because I kind of want to get this working now that I'm in the mood for it. So that's what we'll do on Monday night stream, which will be happening. And you're right. I probably should open the draft beta, but I need to run just now. So I'm going to run. I'll come back and I'll do this later. Thank you all for joining the stream. I hope this was useful. This has been fun. And I will talk to you all another day. Thank you very much. And I will send some stickers and some t-shirts to Norway and Amsterdam, respectively. So, talk to you all later.